Verse 22. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold wedge, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, and all that he had to the valley of Achan. Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." And here's where it gets really AC. Then all Israel stoned him, and after they stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger, and therefore that place has been called the Valley of Achan ever since. That's adult content. There's three parts to the defeat of Israel. The first part is the sin of Achan. That's one of the things. When Israel gets defeated in battle, going into Ai and going up against the Amorites, the first part, unbeknownst to them, is the sin of Achan. The second part is the anger of God. That God has, this is really pertinent to my message this morning, actually, but there's a necessary reaction of God to what's going on. And that is the anger of God. I'll say it in my message, and for those of you who already heard the 9 o'clock message, when I use the word anger in context of God, that is a different anger than most of us display when we're angry. Okay? Trust me on that. Thirdly, so we've got the sin of Achan, we've got the anger of God going on here in this story, and thirdly, we've got the judgment against Israel. Everybody. Sin has now affected the mission of God. God has these people on a mission. They're going to a new place. He's creating a whole new people. And he said, "I'm sending you into Canaan. I'm giving you the land flowing with milk and honey." But now, sin has brought it to a halt. It reminds me of the movie Patton, when Patton mobilizes his army in the post-Normandy invasion of France, and all of a sudden he gets rolling, and because of some other logistical problems, they have to cut the fuel away from Patton and his army. He doesn't have any fuel for his tanks, and they come to a screeching halt. Well, that's not the situation here. The situation here, though, is a screeching halt has happened. It's not because they ran out of fuel. It's because of sin in their midst. This is the first bump, by the way, or at least a case could be made. This is the first bump in the road of the story of the emerging people of God. You know, God led them out of Egypt. They are wandering around. They're moving into the occupation, and the new generation that has been the post-wilderness wanderers, the children of them, they're ready to move on in, and the law has been given again, and now they've got some of the same problems that their predecessors had. By the way, by the time we come here, one of the themes in this story is that, and I tried to highlight it for you when we read through it the first time, was the sin is the Israelites' sin. It's your problem. Now that is a challenge to thinking in 2010. And by the way, I believe that we live in the Republic of the United States of America. It is not a theocracy. It's not the place where God reigns. This is not a God-established country. That's my personal conviction. I do believe that God is very much active in our midst and everything, but I'm not trying to establish the goodness or the badness of what happens in the United States based upon our righteousness or the lack of our righteousness. That's not the case amongst Israel. It clearly is a nation that is established with God as at the center. And we've got an ongoing violation taking place here. And one person's sin holds everybody liable. We don't believe like that. I don't think most of us do. Meaning, in our public context, where most of us live, some of us may, but most of us in our public context understand, if I sin, I'm responsible for it. What's your responsibility? It's not my business. I'll bring our governmental machinery to bear to bring justice, but we view crime or sin, however you want to use it, is largely an individual concept. The notion that it affects everybody in one sense. Let me just go off on a little controversial tangent here. The whole notion of legalization of drugs, which is an increasingly popular theme in our culture here, is based upon the premise, and you'll have to decide whether it's true or not. It's based upon the notion that what I do with my body's my business. And you'll have to decide whether that's true or not. But there's increasing momentum for that being the way it is. Achan's story, let me tell you, does not lead you to that conclusion. I'll let that rest. One person's sin holds the entire group liable. We also have a whole question of what is success coming up early in this story. This is a successful people. They are on a roll. They've been winning left and right. And success has begun to be understood in Israel as, let's go send a team of spies in and check this out, and they come back and they say, we can do this. We only need 3,000 guys. Maybe they had also come to the point in their life where they thought their might was the number of tanks and firepower they could bring to the situation. They had forgotten who had brought them success and what was their true source of success. That's one of the great dangers of the great Samson story. Almost all little kids will think, like many adults, that Samson's hair was the source of his strength. Cut the hair, he becomes powerless. That is the exact opposite message of the story. So what was the success? We don't need to ask God whether we should go in to attack Ai. We'll just send some spies in. We don't even need to bring a full complement of F-16s and Bradley tanks. So one person's sin, and they look at the obvious things, they don't consult God, they see a puny enemy, and away they go. So by the time they plan their attack, their plan is made pretty much independent of any consultation with God. What should we do, Lord? They don't even, you notice Joshua isn't even present in the story at this point. Joshua, the leader, they don't even consult with the president. Let's go. And away they go. So by the end of verse 5, the story of Israel as undefeated, that's gone story. And we read instead of the effect of sin.